This is my very first food challenge in Singapore, where you only have 32 minutes to finish it all. And if I fail to finish this challenge in time, I'll have to fork over $80. Though, taking all this down was not gonna be a cakewalk, especially in this case, where there was a bit of a miscommunication with the restaurant, which could end up being a very costly mistake. And the battle is on. And oh boy, is it on. As I'm grabbing a big old fat piece of meat, then going to town and sending it down here at McGettigan's Irish Bar in the Quay area of Singapore. Though, this time around, I was having a tougher time sending it down, which is where the whole miscommunication aspect comes into play. And I'm sure you're just dying to know more. Before I get into that, I just want to give a special shout out to Peggie for modeling the burger for me in the beginning, because sometimes burgers, they can get so tall they just don't want to stay upright. Also, she has a banging foodie channel, so if you're interested in checking that out, there'll be a link in the description down below. And while we're at it, I'm going to give a quick shout out to Sean and everyone else at Food League Singapore, as they were a big help during my entire time in Singapore, and it was really appreciated.
Tell me now.
Okay. So here's the deal. Typically, while I'm on these tours with the big man himself, Randy Santel, Randy will take his challenge on first, and then I'll take mine on after. But in this case, the restaurant was under the assumption that we were both going at the same time. Which, sure, that's an easy mistake to make and totally understandable. But here's where the situation gets a bit spicy. So during the entire time I was doing my thing for Randy's challenge, things like taking photos and filming his challenge, my challenge was sitting under a heat lamp for who knows how long.
I don't like where this is going.
And just as a side note, based on the initial photos and intel gathered on this challenge beforehand, I would say that, at the very least, this was just a smidge bigger than expected. I could be wrong here, and if I am, please let me know in the comments. But these were supposed to be 8-ounce beef patties, and for 8 ounces, they were looking real thick. But even putting the beef I had with the meat aside, the amount of sides and how they were just overflowing the bowls was a big enough red flag for me. Which did seem to indicate that this challenge was in fact enhanced. However, this is where I was told by the restaurant, since they already made it, if I didn't attempt the challenge, I would still be getting charged for the meal.
You serious?
Yeah. So here I am, jet lagged and all, as I'd flown in from Australia that day, ready to attack this thing as best as I could in order to take this burger challenge down. As this battle continues on, I do want to note that all these different lights gave the place a pretty cool vibe to it, which I didn't really get to fully appreciate at the time, as I was trying to chew my way through all that beef. You could say it was kind of living its own nightlife when it was hanging out under that heat lamp for who knows how long. And I'm not trying to sound salty or anything like that about the situation, and to be fair, the rest of the burger was pretty good. All the toppings were fresh and flavorful, and this was even some of the better bacon I've had on this trip. As I said before, I'm calling it like I see it. The one thing that stood out the most for me were those burger buns. And you know me, I just love putting some nice, soft buns into my mouth. And there's no denying it here. These were some of the softest. You know, the type that's airy, fluffy, and slightly spongy, and just softly shrink down and collapse with every bite. Then when you mix in the flavors and the textures from the other toppings, it was a very redeeming quality to this challenge, and it definitely lifted my spirits, following that brutal battle with those beef patties. The burger is finished, and my taste buds are coming off that flavor high with those nice burger buns. But with only half the time remaining, now was not the time to relish and savor those flavors, as I had to move on to the sides, starting with that massive pile of potato wedges. And knowing that things are gonna get serious here, it was time to bring in my trusty and tried Diet Coke, to better help manage any flavor fatigue and to help burp up any excess air pockets, making more room so I could fill it in with even more potato. Ooh, doing my best to plow through this field of potatoes, but I knew I couldn't let up, and I pressed on. And I was actually feeling pretty good about where I was at. Even though there wasn't a lot of flavor to these potatoes, they at least had some nice texture, and were still relatively warm. Well, at least initially. Because after taking down several of those monster potato slices, I made an unfortunate discovery. The potato wedges that were left were a bit on the tougher side, particularly in the middle. I can't say for sure what the reason was, but instead of having a warmer, softer consistency that would be more close to a baked potato, these were cooled off and harder to chew, and I was already starting to feel in rough shape. But I decided to make one final push, to try to take down these potatoes in quick fashion, leaving me at least a little time for the onion rings. Even with my added final effort and the backup of the Diet Coke, getting through those potato wedges in itself was a challenge within a challenge. And by the time I finished them and made my way to the onion rings, things were looking bleak. But on the plus side, when I did get to the onion rings, all things considered, I thought they were pretty good. I think that's a pretty good compliment in its own unique, quirky kind of way. Although my winning streak did come to an end, I was looking to bounce back in a big way the very next day, which you can watch by tapping the video on the screen or clicking the link down below, and I'll see you there.